And with that, I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone who would like to speak against this budget. Is there anyone who would like to speak for this budget?
Mr. Mayor, Council, Cliff Moon, 2925 8th Street Court Northeast. First of all, I'd just like to very briefly commend you on what I think is a fairly fiscally responsible budget. And I wanted to make a comment. I've been thinking about this a lot since the presentation 2 weeks ago. And I know in today's presentation there's nothing about the Inspiring Spaces initiatives, of course, because we're not there yet. What I'd like to say is as a citizen, I'm not representing any group here, but as a citizen who lives in the Beaumont Falling Creek area, that as I look at the proposals of moving forward and fixing and moving this city forward in terms of its future, and the considerations for a variety, some of those Inspiring Spaces projects I think are great. Some I'm not so sure about. Others are, questionable, of course, and what you do, but they're part of the decision-making process that all of you have to go through. But I want to stand here tonight, and I'm not sure this is going to be very popular with anybody in Hickory but me, but to tell you that you mentioned, Mr. Berry, 2 weeks ago, that the average increase in property tax to do a number of those projects was somewhere in the neighborhood of a little over $100 in a year. And that's how I'm remembering that, if I'm incorrect. And I just want to say to this council, as a personal citizen, that I'd be more than willing to pay that $100 or more a year to see some of these projects, because I believe that some of these projects will indeed create a better city, a more welcoming city, a city that will bring, and by that I mean to business and entrepreneurship and a number of things, and lifestyle in this city, having been a part of that process. But lastly, I'd like to also ask you, please, to, as you consider those things, please remember those middle and lower income property owners who that would be a big burden on them in some ways. And if there's any ways that we can work that in a ways, and I'm not sure of the answer to that, alleviating how that works, but as we move forward, it would be a great thing to me. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
I would just like to say that I think all of us up here share that concern about the burden, particularly on lower and middle income people. To my knowledge, there's no way to deal with that in the property tax arena, but that's, at least in my case, my opinion was the 1% prepared food tax would be an alternative that would hit hardest at the people with the more disposable income, would not be burdensome even to them, and so I kind of like the 1% prepared food tax, but we just may not ever get that. But I would tell you, well, I'll talk about that under general comments later. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for the budget? With that, I'll declare the public hearing closed and ask for motion or discussion.
Mayor, I move approval of the budget.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Seaver, second by Mrs. Fox.
Mrs. Patton.
Mrs. Patton. Any discussion?
Yes, I have some comments I'd like to make. I've given this a lot of thought, and I am truly sensitive to middle class and lower income folks. I have also been on this council for 19 years, and I'm going to give an example, and some of you have heard this example. When I chaired the First Appearance Commission, I sat in a seminar, an all-day seminar, and I heard the Public Works Director of Greenville, South Carolina, lay out the plan for downtown Greenville. And folks, I've been talking for 25 years while Greenville's been doing. And we visited Greenville. I didn't visit Durham, but through my reading and through my understanding, Durham has reinvented itself, and it took 15 to 20 years. Chattanooga did the same thing. 15 years ago, I wrote a paper for my friend Meg Locke, and I quoted Chattanooga, invest in a community that invests in itself. Right now in Hickory, there is a general, what I call malaise or attitude that we're just sort of here. And I realize that we have had a brutal recession. But folks, we've been a vibrant place to live, and we need to get back on track. We have a stellar group in Inspiring Spaces. They too have traveled, and many of the people on Inspiring Spaces have been active participants in our land use processes. And when I looked at the 28 objectives that the consultants had suggested, all those are in our land use processes, which we approved. We have paid consultants to come in and talk about entranceways, more tree cover, connectivity, greenways, vibrant business areas. They have given us over and over again a roadmap. And you know what? I'm tired of talking, and I have thought about this and thought about this. We're middle class, and I don't like tax increases, and I am a fiscal conservative, but I am opposed to this budget for that reason. We need 53 cents. It's my understanding Morganton just raised their taxes. All these places we have visited use combinations of property taxes, public-private partnerships, business improvement districts, which I have never seemed to get anywhere with business improvement districts here. We met after our meeting in Raleigh with Susan Klutz, the former mayor of Salisbury. They started raising their taxes 5 or 6 years ago, a little at a time. They have a Salisbury tourism tax. They have business improvement districts. And yet, we just keep having conversations. So, I applaud the staff. I applaud you all for doing a hard job in a trying economy. But the time is right for this community to move forward, and that's why we were elected leaders. And I'm going to part company, I suppose, with most of my council members, because I believe that we need to invest in ourselves. Because we can't expect Raleigh or Washington to write us a check.
I will agree with you that we need to move forward, but until we have that roadmap from our Inspiring Spaces, I don't think it's prudent for us to decide what amount we should do an increase, but I do agree that there will be an increase to fund what we want to see as a vision for the future of the city to help grow Hickory. And it will come, but it will be a plan rather than shotgun approach. And I think that we all, through our travels, have agreed that this is what it's going to take, and we have tasked the Inspiring Spaces to work with it, the consultants to work with it, and that we will get a roadmap of what is the best use of the dollars, and then get a dollar amount of what it's going to cost, and then move forward. And I think we are all, as a council, on board with moving forward with Inspiring Spaces and to regrow our community.
Well, I would suggest that 2 cents of that go to Inspiring Spaces, and we use that 2 cents to put that in a fund, because it will be just several months probably till they pick their priorities. And if you go back to our land use plans, we already have people who have told us what to do. It's the same song and dance because we have been through charrettes. We have listened historically in the last 2 land use processes to people in town who showed up. And I think Inspiring Spaces knows what they need to do. And I think that there is no problem with giving 2 cents of this budget money and the other 1 cent for roads. We are on a 60-year-old cycle with paving our roads, and this would get us, 1 penny of that would get us below the 45-year cycle. And when you drive into Hickory, folks, it's all about the presentation.
I think everything that Mrs. Fox has said is part of the plan, and I understand and to some degree agree with what she's saying about the length of time it's taken us to get there, and we're not there yet. But I also see the other side of it is that you have to be able to pay for what it is that you're wanting to do. And I think that is the issue that's where we're at right now. I think that it's inevitable that in the very near future that we're probably going to see a tax increase to be able to fund these types of things. But I agree with Ms. Patton that right now we don't have that plan in place to be able to know exactly what it is it's going to cost, and even more than that, to be able to communicate that this is the plan and this is why we're asking for an increase in taxes. I think that's the bridge that we don't have yet. We're almost there, but we're not quite there yet. And I think that we need to take the necessary time. I think that I'm the newest member on the council, and the one thing that I've learned from each and every one of you here is that you don't want to do things too hastily. And although I agree with Ms. Fox that this has been going on for quite some time and that there's been a lot of talk and there's been a lot of discussion, I think we're on the verge of being right there. And I think, like I said, I think it's inevitable, and I think that it's going to happen real quick.
Well, in respect to you, Mr. Guest, I would never say that we've done anything in haste.
I can think of one incident, but I won't go there.
We can all think of one or more, but I mentioned the desire for the 1% food tax, and I think I made this comment last week. We think this is going to be a combination of investment by us locally, investment of state funds, investment of federal funds, and investment of private funds. Didn't I say that? Did I use the 60 million or so? What number did I use? I think well, the problem is we don't know the number. And I don't want to go out. I suspect that some of us on this council are going to be asked to lead the charge. Let's try to make this happen. It needs to happen. We've all agreed it needs to happen. I don't want to start off apologizing for a tax increase that we put on people without an explanation of where it's going to go and why we need to do it right now until we say here's the total plan and here's what it's going to cost and here's how we're going to fund it. So I agree with Mrs. Fox's desire to see this happen, and I don't know that anybody on this council is any more committed than anyone else. I think all of us are committed, but we're just, as Mr. Guest said, we're close. Let's get there. Let's don't start out apologizing. Let's get the buy-in. And I think I said last week, I said, folks, you all help us. You all are here. You know what we're talking about. You know how thrifty we've been over the years. Help us get the buy-in for this, for the benefit of all of us, even the benefit of the naysayers. So I'm satisfied with the fact that people, if they've been listening, they know that we're going to ask for investments of the local people. And we're going to ask, as we did today, Mrs. Fox and I, In no uncertain terms, we're asking for investments by the state government, and as Mr. Lael and Mrs. Surratt and I asked in Washington, we're asking for investments from them. We didn't get in this alone. We got to get out of it, but I don't want us to have to feel like we've got to get out of it alone. So I'm satisfied with the direction, and I applaud the staff for bringing us a budget with no increase.
I agree with what's been said. One story that the mayor told me about, one of the leading citizens of Hickory, generation-wise, was he asked at the post office if they heard about Inspiring Spaces, and she said, I hadn't heard about it. So I think without a plan, without a blueprint in place, with priorities that I think it's coming, but I just don't think at this time the timing is right to really ask for a 2 or 3 cent increase to put somewhere where we really don't have a specific of where it needs to go. It would be a hard sell to the citizens of Hickory.
And just sort of to piggyback on that, I think that we need, as a council, to have a discussion about how we're going to do it, because I would advocate that we put it to the voters, that we ask them for a bond. I think we can get better rates on financing better that way. We involve the community. There is buy-in with a successful a bond issue, and so to not give the voters an opportunity to sound off on it. And look, I'll help you lead the charge, Mr. Mayor and Mrs. Fox and everybody else, to try to get this done. But I think that that's a discussion yet to be had. Is this appropriate for issuance of bonds? So,
well, I just want to go back. I'm going to be a little hard-nosed tonight because I've been here and I have too much knowledge. All of our land use plans that we paid for have talked about tree-lined streets. They've talked about medians. They've talked about connectivity. They've talked about greenway. And we keep talking about a plan. Folks, we have plans sitting on the shelves that we have never funded. And if we had funded some of those, we might not even be sitting here having this discussion.
You know, I've had 2 leading citizens. If I mentioned the names, everyone here would know these names, who have said the thrust of this does not need to be tree-lined streets and entranceways and all of that. And I have disagreed. I have said, no, it's all tied together. We need to make this a place that everyone brags on who lives here. They tell other people how wonderful the place they live in is. They're proud of it. And not see us as an aging infrastructure here. But we've got to put together a plan, if we're going to sell this, that includes demolition of old buildings and includes preparation of sites and buildings for people who want to bring in jobs, because I am told by these leading citizens either that they never heard of this, okay, or this thrust has to be shovel-ready job opportunities.
Well, maybe they haven't heard of Inspiring Spaces, but I was an active participant in all of the land use processes, and we had standing room only with citizens who talked about greenways and connectivity and more sidewalks and walkability. Folks, we've got plans. We are just not willing to spend the money, or we wouldn't be having this discussion. And let me tell you, tree-lined streets, improved entranceways, more sidewalks, walkability, they are economic engines. That is what makes companies want to come to Hickory.
Well, I will disagree. I think we are ready to spend the money. It's just we want to spend it with a plan rather than just say we're going to set aside dollars. We would like to see the Inspiring Spaces put together, what their priorities are. We buy in and we get the public buy-in for it, and we're all ready to spend the money. know I am.
Public buy-in is critical.
It is critical.
If we start off in this, and we're backing up because of a tax increase that people were not expecting, they had no warning of, then we're going to spend a whole lot of time explaining and not much time charging for it.
Well, I think that one of the economics lady in Greenville said that elected folks have to be willing to take a chance. So I'm going to take a chance.
I feel like all of us are taking a chance. This is a very tax-averse community. We've all laid ourselves bare out there that we are pushing to ask for investments. This is not a community that's looking forward to paying more taxes. So I guess I would say I think we are taking a chance. Have we taken the vote? We've not taken the vote, have we?
You have a motion and a second.
We've got any further discussion?
Well, I was just going to reiterate that every penny on the property tax would add $10 a year if you had a $100,000 property. Everybody knows exactly what that means. And some people have trouble figuring that up, and sometimes it gives me trouble, but $10 for every penny on the tax rate.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
No.
Mrs. Fox voted no. There were 6 ayes.